Hello, Art One students. Today we're going to work on 4 different value techniques. We will apply it to 4 different forms, and there's different ways to do this. This is 5 options, but you're going to make do with whatever supplies you have with you, like a ballpoint pen or a micron pen, a regular pencil. Please do not use mechanical pencils. They are not ideal for shading value scales. It is convenient to have a small hand sharpener of any pencil sharpener. If you do have a small hand sharpener, please sharpen your shavings into the lid of a pack of Prismas. We will move on when we get our art kits to using a different brand of pencils that we find to be high quality. So that is something to look forward to. You can use any type of ink pen, any ink pen. So you're going to set up your paper as demonstrated in the warm-up. Now for these horizontal values going across, I am going to turn my paper because my wrist likes to move long ways. If you could see my elbow right now, I like to move my whole arm when shading. So in order to be comfortable doing this, and it might take you some adjusting sitting down, you can press the pencil into the palm of your hand and hold it with 2 fingers or 3 fingers. This gives me the freedom to kind of sketch loosely and be able to get nice soft values. So also neatness is important. I do not want you scribbling outside your box. Please take paper or your name note card, anything, math homework, something to make sure that you do not go outside the box. Okay, so I am holding the pencil, pressing it into the palm of my hand, and I'm just kind of wiggling my whole arm. So our goal here is to work on the amount of pressure and layers as an introduction to value and demonstrating light and shadow. So you will do less layers, a bit more freedom on the side with the paper. You can flip over and continue. So lighter pressure all the way across. This is just an introduction practice. So I'm going to fade it off. This is where my pencil is barely touching the paper. Okay, I'm going to flip this over so that I can work on the bottom half of it. Now I am going to go in a different direction. So if we go in 2 different directions, this is called hatching, but I don't want it to look like hatching. I want it to look smooth and crisp. Now if you do go outside your box, just take a little eraser, clean it up. Okay? Quality matters. This has to look nice. Kind of hold your pencil in a regular wave like writing to go in and really refine some details and edges. Help with straight lines, use a ruler note card or some sort of straight edge. Spend too much time on the first value scale, so we're kind of working quickly. Experience making a transition from dark to light. We want it to look smooth and consistent. It looks a little bit darker right here, so I'm going to work on evening that out. Notice I'm kind of burnishing in a circular motion to kind of soften it up. We're just about done with this one. to zoom out. It looks like it's a little blurry. Let's see if it looks like here. Autofocus. This camera tries to correct things. Notice the difference between my sides. The top is a little bit crisper than the other side. Later, you'll get your sticky erasers. Right now, sticky erasers, not so much available. Sticky erasers make lightening up the end of the value a little bit softer. So when you're doing your lightest value, your pencil is barely touching the paper. It's like you have a feather and you're just lightly shading. As light as you can. Okay, so value number 1 done. I could work on polishing this up for a good minute, but I'm not going to. Now with stippling, if you choose to do stippling, this can be done in any kind of ink. So start off, I like to start off giving myself a solid place to work with and then making it disappear with dots. So if I want it to be super dark at the end, I could just go ahead and fill it in with your ink, any kind of ink. And then if you start doing your dots, you want to have them to be controlled and meaningful with mindful placement. So you know that you're going to have them be further apart and they will space out eventually. I'll pull over my example. So eventually they will become further and further apart. Okay, so really concentrated, a little bit less, and then further apart. So this might take you a good minute. Some nice little meditation. Not want to damage your pen. No one should be able to hear you making these marks. So if the room is full of tapping, you're doing it incorrectly. Larger marks here if you like, just to cover more ground. Make it go a little faster. It takes patience, but it's worth it because no matter what you draw using stippling, it's going to look amazing. And you have the most control, dot by dot. We will apply these to the forms at the bottom of the page. I'm looking for those empty places that need a dot, like looking at balance. Nothing is too clustered in one area. is a little bit time consuming, so work a few more minutes on it. Make it look good. Take pride in your work. This does take patience. It is a beautiful technique that can be combined with other techniques, so it's always worth it. Gives a little bit of texture, surface quality, depending on your object. Can be used on a variety of different surfaces. As long as you have some sort of gradient going across, like we can see this is going from dark to light, we don't have to count how many values. Typically, we like to do 10, which we will on the next lesson be doing 10. So this is just an introduction to that skill. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. I do feel like you can see kind of a little line right here, so I could carry it out a little bit more. I think we could do hatching or scumbling. You can do any of them that you like, but let's label this one. All right, so for hatching, I do recommend having a straight edge of some sort, because having loose lines can look a little bit loose. Just scooting the card, just subtly, and then how close together they look. It's a little hairy, but that's okay. So gradually, they will get further and further apart. So if you'd like to see where you're coming from, you can always pile these on a little extra. If we want to do it without the card, you can have lines on top. Without the card, they look a little bit more organic, which is okay. But there's something really harmonious about having them perfectly straight. So choose your style, just as long as they're not going to the right or the left. Oops. Stretch this out. I added too many lines there. Okay. Darkening up my darkest area. If you're using a ballpoint pen and you're getting those value variations, it probably looks really nice. So the trick here is to start spacing them out a little bit more. Go ahead and be a little bit more ambitious if you like. So we want to go ahead and label this. We're not done yet. Hatching. Now if we went across, that would be considered cross hatching, but we will experience that later. little bit more organic without the card. And our goal is to go from dark to light. Dark all the way to light, so do your best and kind of clean up the edges a little bit. Okay, so do your best on this one and we'll move on to the next. You can do scumbling, or you can take a color pencil and do scumbling. All right, our last one is going to be scumbling. It looks like my hands have smudged my graphite a little bit. That's something we want to make sure we don't do. Okay, so scumbling can be kind of tricky. I like to start off with small squiggles that become detailed, making a darker value. So it's almost like figure eights, S's, circles. Now I did some swirlies. So add layers to your darker value, but then as it gets lighter, you notice that the larger the movement, the lighter the value can be. You don't want it to be too consistent to where it looks like a stamp. So make your lines go in irregular, different directions. Just kind of swirly on top of the darker area, but as long as it's not too obvious. You can always stop. It does not have to be a continuous line. Okay, we are done with scumbling. Now let's apply these to forms. All right, so just a regular sphere over here. So I like to shade my sphere using circular motion. It just makes it easier to go around. So again, you go outside the line, just keep it clean. So we'll just use regular graphite. First one. So try circular motion for shading. Keep this crescent shape coming up. I put the cast shadow there is because the cast shadow where it touches the sphere is always going to be darker than the object, and then cast shadows fade out. A really nice way to define this edge here. Circles, circles, circles. So it's almost like a smooth burnish scumble. I'm going to save room for our highlight. So light is coming from this side. All right, just like in our lighter values on the value scale, you want to lighten up your pressure to give yourself a highlight, smaller movements if you need to have some control. Now, if it's too aggressive, then you have to erase it without smudging. You don't want it to look like a hole either. It's not a hole or an empty circle. You gotta close it up, but it needs to be lighter. Just tap your eraser on there. Don't smudge if you add too much graphite. Back it up a little bit. It's the dirty part of the eraser that starts to make it look that way, so you can kind of clean it off on a paper. We just want to avoid smudging. All right, so we're making a little bit of a mess here. Okay, with the number 2 pencil, this is probably better into this version that you can do. Let's move on to the cube. All right, with the cube, we're going to do hatching. Let's get my pen warmed up. So we need to think about like light, medium, and dark. I would say this side could be medium, this side could be the darkest, or maybe we want this side to be the lightest and this side to be medium. Or I guess it would be like medium light. You just have to figure out your light source. Let's give it a shot and see where we go. First, I'm going to outline. This is like muscle memory here for parallel lines. So we're keeping it parallel. Okay, if I leave these values like this right now, that gives me an opportunity to, go in and add a few more where it's necessary. I'm going to keep those spaced out. Now I think that vertically keeping these the closest together will look the best. Don't forget you can use a straight edge. I'm really trying to challenge myself here with straight lines, but I also enjoy how they look organic. Just the subtle waves in them. It's okay. Almost looking like wood grain, they're so wavy. So let's move around a little bit. All right, we're gonna have to go over and thicken these a little bit on the edges. We can add another layer on top of wonder what would happen if I intentionally put some straight lines, make it look really nice. What I'm doing is I'm creating contrast between the sides. I feel like these two sides look very similar right now. So I'm going to add more to my front facing side. I feel it gives the illusion that it's darker than the other side. All right, so let's do some scumbling on this cone, and then we'll do stippling on the end. So scumbling, we could do stippling, or you could reverse it, scumbling. It could be either one. Keep it real tiny on this edge. Larger towards the lighter side. So you want it to taper like a really acute triangle from the tip out. So if you're looking at your shadow range, kind of isolate it to that area before it starts transitioning to a midtone. All right, knowing when to stop on this one is going to be really important. Let's move on to stippling. I should have dotted my edge. Stop on those edges there. Really dot this edge and then go in and erase the pencil lines later. Gotta go slow because I don't like it when they look like ice cream sprinkles. Like lines instead of dots. You want to make sure that they are dots. Create contrast between the lid on the top, the top of the cylinder. So we are defining the object's form by using texture with ink. Okay, do the best you can. Keep stippling. You can always add more contrast. Always have patience. Be mindful where you place your marks. I'm going to end the video, but that does not mean that you are done with this cylinder. It just means that I'm done recording. All right, so 40 minutes, that's about half your class. Use the other half of your class to prepare the next lessons. Make sure you always put your name in the corner. We do not like to accept your work. We will not accept your work. You should put your name and the class period next to it, okay? All right, whichever class it is. All right, so it's a 37-minute video. I did go as fast as I could for recording purposes, but do the best you can. Looks like these new cameras like to correct the shading here, and it looks smudged. So you can really see the ink. You can tell this is made for documents and not drawing, but it's the best we can do on here for this video. So do the best you can, and always look at your teacher's live example rather than the camera example. Thank you.